Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and right here in WrestleRant, I break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. And today, we're talking all about the one event that I've been looking forward to watching and reviewing for a long time now, SummerSlam 2015. And the reason for that being, I was at this show, and I had not watched it back in its entirety. Not too surprising, considering the show's 4 hours, and it's hard to sit down to watch a show for 4 hours. But regardless, though, I was at SummerSlam 2015, could not have been any more excited. I will be at SummerSlam this year as well. So as the biggest blockbuster of the summer draws near, I thought it was only fitting to sit down and watch the event that I attended last year in last year's installment, SummerSlam 2015. So as I said, I bought my tickets for the show all the way back in March of 2015. I bought my tickets for this year's show WrestleMania weekend, like the day or 2 days before WrestleMania, when the tickets went on sale. They sold out almost immediately. So I'm glad I got my tickets. But I look forward to being in the Barclays Center for the second straight year for what should be a great show. But this is all about SummerSlam 2015. And for the first time ever, SummerSlam was 4 hours long to truly make it the biggest blockbuster of the summer, to truly make it the WrestleMania of the summer season. They extended the show to 4 hours, which I will say right off the bat was not necessary. And it's definitely different watching it, obviously. I mean, this is kind of common sense, but it's different being there for a show than it is watching it on the network or watching it back on DVD or whatever else, watching it live or watching it in retrospect. Not that the show is boring in retrospect. I own it on Blu-ray. I bought it on Blu-ray a couple months ago. They had it on sale on WWEshop.com because no one buys DVDs anymore. I'm the one schmuck that still does. So I watched it on Blu-ray. It was a great experience to watch back just to relive each match and moment and whatnot and get a different perspective on it. But I just don't remember the show being that long being there for it. Like at the time, I know I was a bit drained out, and being in attendance for TakeOver as well the night prior. But SummerSlam, there was just no need for the show to be 4 hours, I don't think. And it's going to be 4 hours again this year, so I should probably start eating my words. But and there are ways to make 4 hours entertaining. And I'm not saying it can't work, but with 10 matches and not every match feels like a SummerSlam marquee match, it's just kind of their way of getting everyone on the card. It's not really that necessary. So one of my biggest gripes against this show, kind of at the time when it happened and definitely watching it back, it's too long of a show. At 4 hours, there's a lot of filler. There's some really, really good matches, don't get me wrong, some great moments and whatnot, but it just didn't really feel like it was necessary for it to be a 4 hour show. But at any rate, we kicked off the show with Sheamus and Randy, or initially we kicked it off with the SummerSlam host, Jon Stewart from The Daily Show. He had just retired from that shtick only months earlier. This was his first non-Daily Show gig. And hosting SummerSlam, there was anyone better for the gig, considering the fact that he is a big wrestling fan. He was largely involved with WWE in 2015, hosting Raw back in March, having that whole angle and interaction with Seth Rollins. So it made perfect sense to have him host the show. Also, he brought out Mick Foley to help him call out Brock Lesnar. He said he was sad the streak was broken, so he wanted some backup. So before he went to go talk to Brock Lesnar later on in the night backstage. So he recruited the likes of Mick Foley. Mick Foley got mistaken. He thought he was talking about The Rock, to interview The Rock and not Brock Lesnar. Missed that one syllable there, that one little letter, making the biggest difference. So when we heard The Rock, by the way, I thought The Rock might be there, considering there were a few people that I wanted / thought would be there. Sting, the Dudley Boys, and The Rock. We got 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, and those returns were remarkable, by the way. And Mick Foley was a nice surprise as well. I had seen him, in person before. I had actually met him a couple of weeks prior to this, at a Northeast Wrestling Indie show in Mass, only literally weeks earlier in early August. So it's cool to see him again live at SummerSlam. He got a nice little reaction. He's from the New York area, obviously, so it's not too far from where he lives, so it really wasn't a stretch to see him there at all. But it was cool in this little segment to kick off the show with people like Mick Foley, that like Jon Stewart, didn't boo him out of the building like they did many guest hosts before who had no idea what wrestling was or what it was all about. They were just there to promote a movie or some shit like that. Jon Stewart was not there to do that. I don't think he even had anything to promote. He had just got done with The Daily Show. He was just there to be there and obviously gained some mainstream attention for WWE, but he really wasn't there to serve his own agenda whatsoever, so that was pretty exciting. But either way, like I said, I mentioned this before, but when he said Rock, the Great One, when Mick Foley came in, that was cool. But when Mick Foley said the Great One, when he mentioned The Rock, people got their hopes up. You could see people when you're watching it back on the network kind of look towards the stage waiting for Rocky because it would have been cool. I have no idea. I'm recording this so far in advance, I have no idea whether Rock has been confirmed for this year's show. I doubt it. But The Rock, in the time that he's been back with the company for the past 5 years, has yet to make an appearance at SummerSlam, surprisingly enough. He's been at WrestleMania, obviously, every WrestleMania since 2011. He's appeared at the Royal Rumble. He's even wrestled at Survivor Series, but he has yet to wrestle or even appear at SummerSlam, which, like I said, is WWE's biggest show next to WrestleMania, so it's pretty surprising. But so I was a little disappointed The Rock didn't show up, but we still got Mick Foley, so that was a nice little replacement. In the opening match of the show, this is what I was going to talk about before, Sheamus and Randy Orton for what felt like the millionth time. And they've had good matches. They've had some not-so-good matches. I thought the Battleground match, which I talked about a few weeks ago here in WrestleRant, check it out, cheap plug. I don't know what number it was, but Battleground 2015, that was a really good match. And I thought what made that match so good was that they were in Orton's hometown of St. Louis. He was kind of feeding off the crowd. He fed off the crowd here as well, but there were points where the crowd is kind of training boring. Unsurprisingly so, like I said, we've seen this match a million times before. I mean, fun fact for you, we saw the same exact match at SummerSlam 2010 as well. And that was when Sheamus wasn't completely overexposed. He was Mr. Money in the Bank at this point, so to see him win clean was a nice little pleasant surprise. I thought it was a good, well-wrestled match, not as good as the Battleground bout, but it just, again, completely unnecessary. I really wanted to see Orton move on to fresh feuds, but to see him continue his feud with Sheamus for real no apparent reason, because they would have a rematch again weeks later on Raw, and I think Orton would win that too, so these matches were completely pointless. At any rate, a good match, though, to kick off the show, and people were very much into Randy Orton. After that, for the WWE Tag Team titles, a fatal four-way tag team title match between the Primetime Players, the New Day, Los Matadors, and the Lucha Dragons, who I think I forgot to mention in one of my previous videos. I don't remember what video, maybe a WrestleRant video, hashtag AskGSM. I couldn't recall for the life of me. But anyway, though, we had this fatal four-way tag team title match. Dragons, the Players, Matadors, and New Day. New Day was just getting over as the hottest thing in the company, so it really only made sense to have them win here. But I thought this was a really good match, honestly better than the fatal four-way tag team title match that we got at Money in the Bank only a few short months ago. And I thought this was a really fun match. I mean, there were still a fair share of botches, a lot like in the fatal four-way tag team match from Money in the Bank this year. But overall, I thought it was very well wrestled. The Matadors, despite being completely out of place and having real no shot at winning the tag team titles, thankfully, they played their roles well. They're also very good wrestlers. I mean, despite how shitty the gimmick was, they are both very, very good wrestlers. The Primetime Players were pretty much over in the Barclays Arena, or the Barclays Center in front of the Brooklyn crowd, which was surprising to me, but pleasantly surprising in that respect. The Dragons were not on point here as probably as they should have, but they still had a good showing. The New Day obviously stealing the show. Unfortunately, their rendition of New York by Jay-Z is not available on the network, and I thought in watching this on Blu-ray this past week, it would be available on the Blu-ray, but it's not either. They just completely cut out the performance, which was very disappointing. It's not obvious either. I mean, it goes from one segment to the next, and from one moment to the next, the New Day are in the ring, and it doesn't feel like they skipped anything. But it's still very disappointing because that was amazing, and then you would see Francesca debut the next night on Raw in Brooklyn as well. But still a fun match. New Day in the end taking the tag team titles, becoming a two-time WWE Tag Team Champions. And as of this recording, they're still Tag Team Champions to this day. I know this is going up in early August. I'm recording this before Battleground. Who knows if they're still Tag Team Champions. But for their reign to last that long is truly impressive, especially this day and age where people are dropping and winning titles every few months, even every few weeks in some respects, in some cases. It's been an extremely impressive run from the New Day as WWE Tag Team Champions. After that, Dolph Ziggler and Rusev didn't give a shit about this match whatsoever. Probably the worst match of the night, even in the arena. At the time, no one cared about this at all. Just because the feud had been so bad. I mean, I know people went nuts when Ziggler came back a few weeks earlier, like the go-home show before SummerSlam, or I think the week before that. No, I think it was a week later. The week later they did that, when Ziggler came back only days before the pay-per-view. People went nuts for Ziggler, but by this point, just no one gave a shit about the feud. It did not help matters at all that it ended in a double countout, continuing the feud for many months to come. So this was just pure awfulness. This was just not good whatsoever. I mean, again, it wasn't really a bad match, but the storyline had been so bad that it was really hard to enjoy the matches these two had against each other. Just the whole thing with Lana and Summer and Rusev and Ziggler, the whole love square, if you want to call it that, was just so bad it was really hard to enjoy this. And the non-finish did not help matters. Stephen Amell teaming with Neville to take on Stardust and King Barrett. A fun little match for what it was. I mean, Stardust, or rather Stephen Amell for the athlete that he was. The guy was in great shape, obviously having no prior wrestling experience. He got in shape, or did some wrestling training prior to this matchup to kind of get familiar with wrestling and whatnot. But still a good little match. Not a great match by any means, but fine for what it was. And, Amell had a good showing here. Neville scored the victory, and he had a nice showing as well. Unfortunately, that really wouldn't do much for Neville. He kind of got a little boost with the pairing of, and being paired with Amell. But beyond that, they went on to do nothing with him for the remainder of 2015. So it's not like it really did him, much good in the remainder of that year. But Stardust and Barrett, I thought, were a good little tag team. I mean, Barrett and Stardust on paper were polar opposites, one being a fake king and the other one being, an alien from another planet or whatever the hell Stardust was supposed to be. But they found good chemistry with him being the Cosmic Kings. I believe that's what their tag team name was. But then Barrett got turned on by Stardust the very next night on Raw because Barrett had to go film a video or film a movie or something for WWE Studios, so he was gone for a while. But anyway, still a good match and a nice little showing from Amell. Unfortunately, this would be the final appearance to date that we would see from Amell in WWE. And that one-on-one match between Amell and Stardust never came to be, unfortunately, because Stardust left the company earlier on this year. Fun fact for you as well, The Miz was originally supposed to be Stardust's partner, which would have made a lot more sense considering he had a back and forth with Amell on social media for many months. He was the A-lister of the WWE. It would have made a lot more sense than Barrett, who was just kind of thrust in there for no apparent reason. But because the IC title match got bumped from Battleground to SummerSlam, they decided to put Miz in that match and put Barrett in this contest instead. So, little interesting fact for you if you didn't know about it before. But a triple threat match up next, the Intercontinental Championship, Ryback defending against The Miz and Big Show, speaking of which. A surprisingly good match, honestly. I mean, it only went 5 minutes, but for the 5 minutes that it was given, it was a good match. A lot of good near falls, too. Miz at one point, I believe Big Show had knocked out Ryback or something along those lines. Or Ryback, rather, delivered the shell shock to Big Show. And then Miz capitalized by hitting the skull-crushing finale on Ryback for a very, very good near fall. So a lot of fast-paced action, not any high-flying shit or anything like that. Didn't need the mat. Didn't need any high-flying stuff. Excuse me. Because you had the Miz, Big Show, and Ryback. But still, for what this was, I thought this was really good. I mean, to some people, it might have been the worst match of the night. It was obviously the shortest match of the night. But it didn't really need to be any longer than what it was. For what it was, it served a purpose. They kept the belt on Ryback. I was very afraid they might put the belt on Big Show. I almost cried. But thankfully, Ryback retained. He had a good showing here. All three guys had a very good showing. The people were into the near falls. And I thought for what it was, a lot better than what I was expecting from these three. So good shit. After that, a tag team match pitting Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns against the Wyatt families, Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper. And this was obviously before Eric Rowan came back and before Braun Strowman debuted. So it was just these two at the time. A very chaotic, war-like tag team match. Not quite on the level, obviously, as the Shield Wyatt family six-man tag team matches from earlier on in 2014. But for what this was, that it was a great match. Without those extra components of Eric Rowan and Seth Rollins, even without those guys, you still had a very chaotic feel to this contest going all around ringside. Dean Ambrose are taking out Bray Wyatt through the barricade and all this other stuff, and Luke Harper having a great showing here too, just being an awesome, very underrated wrestler is Luke Harper. But Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, obviously the crowd booed Roman Reigns, but this isn't just my observation, this is very much common sense, but Roman Reigns always seems much more comfortable when he's with Dean Ambrose, like as a tag team partner, even as a rival. It seems like he's a lot more likable as a character when he's with Dean Ambrose. They just have such great chemistry together. And that really shined through here. I thought it was a very fun match. The only gripe against it was the fact the Wyatt family lost clean. Well, a couple different things surprised me. One, that the Wyatt family lost clean. I mean, it was Bray Wyatt, too, who got pinned, which shocked me beyond belief. He got beat with the dirty deeds and then followed up by a spear from Roman Reigns to win clean. And then a lot of people, myself included, were expecting a turn here. And at the end, everyone in the arena was kind of on their toes waiting for something to happen between Reigns and Ambrose. After Ambrose hit Wyatt with the dirty deeds, he was kind of hanging over the ropes. I thought he was going to start attacking Roman. Didn't happen. And I'm glad it didn't. Obviously, they had no real reason to turn Dean Ambrose. He was one of, and still is, one of the most popular baby faces, one of the most popular stars in the company to this day, even now. So there was really no need to turn him heel. I mean, it would have been cool if they turned Roman, but we all knew that wasn't happening, given how adamant WWE was in pushing him as a top-tier babyface. But a good match, easily the best match of the night up to this point. After that, for the WWE World Heavyweight and United States Championships, a champion versus champion title match between the WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins and the United States Champion John Cena. Easily one of my favorite matches from 2015. RJ is going to love my praise of this match. He fucking loves this match. He's watched it back a million times. I think the only other time, obviously before watching the DVD just recently, I had seen this match in its entirety was with RJ a few months ago at his place. He had it on the network. I watched it before I took off. And it's such a great freaking match. And I was really skeptical too, because obviously part of me was disappointed and a bit let down. The Owens and Cena feud got cut short at Battleground as opposed to going until SummerSlam, which I feel like that is where the blow-off should have happened. But it was worth it in the end for what we got here. And the screw job finish, which we'll talk about more in a second. But initially, when the whole match was first made, I liked the fact that I knew we were going to be watching history in person. Like, oh shit, like a new champion will be crowned. I was half expecting a fuck finish, and technically we did get that, but I thought we would get a count out or a DQ, and then therefore neither championship would change hands, and that was going to be a bit disappointing, and thankfully that was not the case. Anyway, so initially I was a bit let down that I like, oh man, John Cena and Seth Rollins again, because we had seen the match multiple times before. Earlier on in 2015, they had done the full match almost even on Raw a few weeks before this, the same match where Seth Rollins broke John Cena's nose, another extra component to this contest, in addition to the whole, if I beat you, I'll become a 16-time world champion, and you broke my nose, and the whole, I've been a fighting champion, you haven't been, blah, 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 blah. So you had all those different aspects in this matchup. The added little wrinkle here, I guess is the right word I'm looking for, was that Rollins broke Cena's nose weeks earlier, so Cena was looking for revenge for that one move, for that knee. The You Can't See Me t-shirt. The You Can't See Me t-shirt is still a classic tee. Anyway, though, so Rollins and Cena had many matches, later on in 2014, early in 2015, so I really thought it was a retread of an old match, of an old feud, to see it again at SummerSlam. But with the two titles on the line, I will admit that definitely made the match a lot more exciting, obviously. And Rollins was over like a motherfucker in the Barclays Center. The guy came out like a knight on a white knight riding on a horse into the sunset. If that's the right comparison to make, I don't even know. But bottom line, he came out to a hero's homecoming in Barclays, in Brooklyn. Just an amazing reception for Seth Rollins with the whole white gear. Guy looked like a fucking star. And then John Cena came out. John Cena came out first, but the John Cena sucks. And to be a part of that live is just surreal. And if you have never been a part of a John Cena sucks chant, not let's go Cena, Cena sucks. That goes back a decade. I'm talking about John Cena sucks. The entrance music when he comes out, it's just surreal and so much fun to be a part of. But that dynamic was awesome, and like I said, they had so many matches, later on in the latter half of 2014. Not that I wasn't looking forward to the match, but I'm thinking, okay, what else can they do to make me excited about their upcoming encounter? Because we've already seen this match multiple times before. We saw them fight in a tables match, in a steel cage match, this and that, a lumberjack match. I remember early on in 2015. We had seen so many different stipulation matches. Like, what else can these guys do? And honestly, I mean, this is not saying too much, but this was easily the best bout these two have ever had. On pay-per-view, Raw, SmackDown, house show, whatever. These guys just clicked on this night. I know they've had many other great matches before, but on this night specifically, their chemistry was just off the charts, and Rollins specifically had an amazing showing. Cena going for the awful-looking springboard stunner, which never came off well. Thank God he has since stopped doing it. But Rollins with the amazing, excellently executed, that's a tongue twister, frog splash on John Cena. I don't even know what the hell you call it, the Falcon's Arrow, I think it's called, when he jumps off the top rope, or he does a suplex off the top rope, and then turns that into another suplex in the middle of the ring. I believe it's called the Falcon's Arrow. He hit that to a T as well. That came off perfectly. So again, so many cool looking moves. The AA lands on his feet, hits it with an enziguri. John Cena hitting the AA, and he kicks out and everything else. So just a great series of moves here. And then in the end, Cena goes to the AA. Rollins accidentally kicks the referee down, gets the 1, 2, 3, but the referee isn't there to count it. So the crowd is looking up and down the ramp. We're all expecting something to happen. I'm like, okay, I'm fully expecting something to happen. And me, going into the show, I'm fully thinking, I'm definitely, I have my mind set on John Cena winning. Not that I want to see him win, but my prediction was that Cena would win, LOL. Or we would get a cash-in halfway through from Sheamus. So when the referee got knocked down, I'm like expecting Sheamus or another referee, something stupid to happen. So then the referee goes down, Rollins gets up, hits Cena with the knee, so Cena goes down for another minute, and then out comes none other than Jon Stewart himself. And then they would explain this next night on the Raw, which I'll talk about in a second. But Stewart comes down. This did not come off great. But in the arena, I mean, at the time I excused it just because we were there, and I just liked the fact that Rollins won. It just came off super well. But the execution of this angle could have been done better. I don't really fully blame Stewart. He's not fully entrenched in the wrestling business to really know what the hell he was doing. But he comes down with a steel chair in hand. He teases attacking Rollins. He teases attacking Cena too. And I don't know if that was the intent. I think he was just supposed to go after Rollins given their long history. So why would he have teased going after Cena if that's ultimately what he ended up doing? You know what I mean? Maybe the intent was for him to tease giving the chair to John Cena to attack Rollins with it when the referee was down. I'm not really sure what they were going for. And then in the end, after he smacks John Cena in the stomach and the crowd goes crazy, I'm just losing up in the rafters, Stewart takes the chair and throws it into the ring, or not into the ring post, but into the corner right under one of the bottom ropes. And he doesn't realize that he was actually supposed to slam it down in the middle of the ring so Rollins could do the pedigree on top of the chair to Cena. So I'm thinking, oh, geez. But anyway, it came off great. The crowd ate it up, despite how wishy-washy it came off or how, fluky it came off. Rollins hits a pedigree on top of the chair to score the United States Championship and retain his WWE World Heavyweight Championship for the first time ever, a simultaneous reigning U.S. and WWE champion. A remarkable moment to a phenomenal match. The finish itself was just not... I got a lot of people were mad about the whole fuck finish and the interference, which is typical TNA, like classic TNA bullshit, so I'm not really going to praise WWE for doing it, but not doing it, shit on TNA for doing the same exact thing. So it was a kind of a fluky finish. It would have been nice if Rollins won, clean, obviously. Obviously, that wasn't in the cards, given that he was a... he did beat Sting clean in Night of Champions. I know he was hurt, but he still beat him clean. So I'm not exactly sure. He did beat Ambrose clean at one point as well. But at any rate, so he hits the pedigree, wins the matchup. The fluky finish was what some people had a problem with. I was just happy Rollins won. But in retrospect, it did come off a bit fluky. It would have been nice if they delivered a cleaner finish, but it was what it was. Stewart, a lot of people were criticizing the fact that why the hell would he do that? He's been feuding with Rollins for months. It makes absolutely no sense. He would explain the next night on Raw that the whole segments that he did with Paul Heyman throughout the night backstage and saying, I'm a real wrestling fan, and a real wrestling fan would never want to see the streak get broken in WrestleMania. That all tied into him on... I don't even know if those were done off the cuff or those were designed for him to explain his actions from SummerSlam. Hopefully it had been the plan the whole time, and if it wasn't, I would not be surprised because that's typical WWE. But at any rate, he explained his actions the next night on Raw, saying a real wrestling fan does not want to see Ric Flair's 16 titles record broken by John Cena or even tied by John Cena. And then Ric Flair came down and said it was okay, which was bizarre. And then Cena gave him an AA. So the whole thing was very odd, but Stewart, for one thing, bottom line, deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's done probably more than Drew Carey, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and multiple other people combined in the last few years. Anyone else that has gone into the WWE Hall of Fame. But good shit, great match. Kind of a questionable finish, but still the right person went over in my book. Team PCB versus Team Bella versus Team Bad in a three-way Divas tag team match, elimination team match. Good for what it was. I was glad it got the time that it did. Just not that it was a bad match, just people just kind of sat on their hands, especially this late in the show. And coming off the classic we had just seen between Rollins and Cena, just not the best placement of the match. It was just kind of in that death slot. So the crowd didn't really care that much. Banks was just kind of wasted here, but I wasn't really that disappointed. The people were very much into Banks more so than anyone else in this match. But I wasn't too disappointed just because she had gone through a gruesome match with Bayley the previous night at TakeOver in Brooklyn. Same arena, obviously. So I wasn't too surprised / disappointed she didn't get too involved in this match just because she was probably still resting up her injuries from Saturday night. But I thought this was good. I thought this was a good match. PCB went over after Team Bad got eliminated first, then Team Bella. It was fine up until SummerSlam, but the whole faction wars bullshit got just overdone and tiresome beyond Summer. This shouldn't have been the be-all, end-all of this fucking faction war shit because it went on for so long beyond SummerSlam that no one gave a shit anymore. And it's a miracle that Becky and Charlotte ended up getting over the way they did. Because Paige got lost in the shuffle. Team Bad isn't even around anymore. Tamina and Naomi are both hurt currently. Sasha just came back. Nikki's pretty much hurting on the shelf for a while. Brie Bella's gone. Alicia Fox has been MIA for the longest time now. So the whole Divas Revolution in the end was a bust. For what they were trying to accomplish with it, ultimately it would lead to the return of the Women's Championship, return of the women's term when it comes to women's wrestling, not that diva bullshit. But the Divas Revolution, for what they were trying to make it out to be, wasn't what they probably were intending it to be, if that makes sense. In the end, it worked out. We have Charlotte as the women's champion, Sasha in the women's championship picture as well. We have Becky Lynch getting over as a plucky babyface. But that was never really the intent from the beginning. I know it kind of was, but they paired them all together in these random-ass women's tag team matches that never really served their purpose. But you know what I'm talking about. Still, bottom line for what this was, decent match. Crowd didn't really care, though, coming off of Rollins and Cena. Kevin Owens and Cesaro, the crowd was also kind of silent. Not silent for, but they were a bit quieter for. But I would argue that was because they were very much, we were very much into the match. I, for one, was very much enjoying this match. It was a great, well-wrestled match. They got some pretty good time. KO going over clean in the end. Bouncing back from his loss to take over Brooklyn to Finn Balor in the ladder match of the NXT Championship. So he was a logical winner here. But yeah, a good match. The crowd is more so appreciating the in-ring action than they were bored by it. Obviously it was late in the show, so that probably played a factor. This would have been a better, opening match. But then probably Sheamus and Orton, I would argue. I would have put this in the opener over Sheamus and Orton. But still, a very good match from KO and Cesaro. And KO getting a nice little clean victory over Cesaro. And then the main event. The Undertaker taking on Brock Lesnar in a rematch that was billed to be too big for WrestleMania. And a rematch from WrestleMania 30. So, overall, the first 5 seconds of the match, and you have, before we even get to the match, you have never truly lived life as a WWE fan until you have experienced the entrances of The Undertaker, and even more so, Brock Lesnar. Just the base of that entrance theme is just so surreal, and I cannot wait for him to wrestle at SummerSlam so I can hear this music again. We got to hear it at Raw back in October. We heard it at SmackDown, so I've technically seen Lesnar 3 times in the matter of a year, which is just blows my mind. But at any rate, this was great shit. The first 5 seconds of the match alone were better than anything they did at WrestleMania 30. That match sucked. I don't care if that was designed to be that way. Pretty sure it wasn't, just because Taker was knocked out. Lesnar was knocked out. Taker was knocked out. It was just, that was a train wreck of a match. That match was just total shit. Lesnar wasn't knocked out. He was knocked out at WrestleMania 29 in his match with Triple H. That match was garbage. That was hot, steamy poop. But instead, we got Lesnar and Taker here for the second time. Much better. Taker was in much better shape. Lesnar looked great here. Just going right after Taker before he even steps in the ring, just having an all-out brawl. Hitting Taker with 3 F5s. He kicks out an F5 on the commentator's table on the outside as well. Taker hitting a last rod, a chokeslam, a tombstone. Lesnar kicks out of everything. So another convoluted finish to another big marquee match on the show. So this is what happens. He hits the F5, he kicks out, he gets locked into the Hell's Gate, and he gets out of it. One thing leads to another, and he locks in the Kimura. And Taker taps out on the side, but the referee doesn't see it, but the timekeeper does. Why the timekeeper would call for the bell, or rather ring the bell anyway, despite the fact that Charles Robinson did not see the tap out, I have no idea. It was something different. It was a lot better than doing a fucking count out or a DQ finish, which we had seen time and time again in WWE. So I can at least appreciate and, commend them for doing something different at least, despite how confusing it was. So anyway, he had him in the Kimura. Taker taps out. The referee doesn't see it. He's too busy looking at Lesnar's shoulders, who he only got a 1 count on. So when the bell rings, and we don't see the referee call for the bell, we're thinking, oh great, another SummerSlam screw job. We're all just super confused. So then the referee goes over to the bell, or to the timekeeper. He's arguing with him. In the meantime, Lesnar has his back turned. Taker nails him with a low blow, follows up with the Hell's Gate. And before Lesnar passes out, he flips him off. He gets blurred out. It's probably blurred out on the network too, but it's also blurred out on the DVD release, unfortunately. But before he passes out, flips him the bird, passes out. Taker is awarded the victory via, not submission, but by KO. He still has yet to submit. He has yet to tap out or be pinned since WrestleMania 29, in my book anyway, in WWE. So this was a great match. The finish was very confusing. People left the arena very disappointed, like, oh, that was utter bullshit, super confusing, blah, blah, blah. Which, again, I understand. I understand people's anger towards the finish of this match. It did lead to an even better match, which I thought was the best match of the 3 matches they had in 2014 and 2015. The Hell in a Cell match at Hell in a Cell, which I thought was remarkable, which I'll talk about in a few months in my Hell in a Cell 2015 review. But I thought this was really, really good. We were very much into it. It had that big fight feel to it, coming off that amazing brawl on Raw the night after Battleground. That was some great, awesome shit right there. But it closed out a great night, not on the best of notes, but I was happy that Lesnar was not technically defeated. He did technically win the match and did not technically tap out. So technically, it was a great match. Not even technically. It was a very, very good match overall, with a convoluted finish that a lot of people did not appreciate. But overall, I thought this was a great show. The 4 hours, like I said at the start of the review, were very much unnecessary. This year's installment is going to be 4 hours too, so there's really no point in ranting about it or complaining about it. So I look forward to being there live and watching on the network, and even in retrospect, these two are all very different things. Being there for it live didn't really feel like the 4 hours had been that long. But then, obviously, you watch it back on DVD or on the network and you don't skip over anything. The 4 hours definitely feel like 4 hours. But I thought it was a really good show. The top 2 matches delivered, making this a very good show in my opinion. Not quite as good as TakeOver Brooklyn from the night prior, but what else was going to be TakeOver Brooklyn? That show was fucking phenomenal. But either way, the top 2 matches for me sold the show. Great matches. Despite the questionable finishes, they were something different. So again, I appreciate that much. They weren't a typical DQ or a Money in the Bank cash-in. It was something different. So I appreciated that much. But both matches before the bell had rang were great and very much well wrestled, and I enjoyed them both. The rest of the card was pretty solid. Owens and Cesaro having an underrated match in my mind. The women's match got a lot of time. Good match, not too exciting, just had a lot of different components and a lot of women in there, but it was still good. Reigns and Ambrose versus the Wyatt family, a very good, probably the third best match of the night in my opinion. The IC title match served a purpose, and it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Amell, Neville, and Stardust and Bear probably did not need to happen. They just did it for the mainstream publicity, the mainstream attention, but it was fine for what it was. Ziggler and Rusev was, in my opinion, the worst match of the night. I just could not have cared less about that. And the opener was a lot of fun, too, or rather, the tag team title match was a lot of fun. New Day were the right people to go over. Easily one of the most over acts in the entire show. And then Sheamus and Orton having a good opening match as well. So overall, great show. Check it out again. I don't know if I would recommend watching the full 4 hours, but it was still a very good show on the whole. If anything, check out the top 2 main events between Rollins and Cena, and Taker and Brock Lesnar. And that is my review of SummerSlam 2015. Amazing being there for it, and amazing watching it back on DVD. You can check it out on the network, and I look forward to being in person and on site for SummerSlam 2016 in just a few short weeks away. But until my next review, which we'll be covering, I believe, the 1985 Wrestling Classic, or something like that. I forgot the exact name of the pay-per-view, but it is on the network, obviously, which is the whole point of WrestleRant. I believe it's called the Wrestling Classic, or not Tuesday in Texas. I know what that pay-per-view is. It's one of those type of shows, but it's from 1985. Not WrestleMania, obviously, but another show like that. Or from 1986. I think I'm talking about, or no, the big event was from 1986. I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about that in 2 more videos. I'll be talking about the 1985 show, the Wrestling Classic, whatever it was called, in my next WrestleRant video coming up. In my next video, either this week or this weekend. I'm taping this so far in advance, I have zero idea when this is going up, but you know what I mean. My subsequent video will be covering the Wrestling Classic, or whatever it's called, right here on WrestleRant. So in the meantime, guys can follow me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant. Find me on the Facebook at facebook.com/Graham Matthews, and right here on YouTube by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. So until next time, guys, I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.